Louie Byford. So please, will you give it up for Louie Byford?
Okay. 3 exposures to Kate Bush in my younger and more vulnerable years was enough to confirm that this woman's work was not for me. The first was when my 7-year-old sister repeatedly played Wuthering Heights in our shared bedroom for weeks on end. And the second was the sensual world's rather trite appearance in the Extras Christmas special. And the third was the perplexing usage of The Hounds of Love in an after-school drama club production when I was 14. Now, each instance felt intrusive and stultifying. If it wasn't offending my aesthetic taste, it was certainly affecting my patience. Consequently, I concluded that her music was melodramatic, it was sappy, shrill-voiced, it was abrasive, it was irritating, it was overly effeminate, and it was just noise. Furthermore, her fans were undoubtedly all suffering from a universal lapse of taste. Of course, the context of these experiences influenced that conclusion, but hasty and faulty assumptions have been an unfortunate lifelong forte. Hence why I lost sight of the value of engaging in theatre, and hence why over a decade later, I thought it would be a good idea to undertake a degree in education in a city I'd never visited about 200 miles away in my mid-20s. That was York, Derwent College right there. The first year was manageable, the second terrible. I made no friends or even any real acquaintances within my year. I was often immensely perplexed and frustrated with the conduct of my peers in seminars and lectures, and I soon felt the drive of analytical reading and the pursuit of wisdom degrade daily. And to top it all off, a global pandemic was beginning to occur around my second year. So the quality of my higher education experience degenerated further with interactive learning forced to the online space of Zoom. So I deferred my studies for a year. I thought things would be better after lockdown. Yeah, they weren't. I nearly had a nervous breakdown in one seminar, and I came back from another in a complete state of just delusion and zombification. I crawled straight into bed. That was the first time I've ever slept for 24 hours straight, and hopefully the only time. So soon enough, I was the kind of student I started out despising, but I figured that I had enough humility to at least save my tutors the hassle of that, so I quit. That was painful, it was failure, it was humiliation, it was a profound waste of money. But despite my bitterness, my gloom, and my perplexity, I wanted to at least honor something of the essence of my initial endeavor. So I got stuck into imaginative literature in my own time. And since I was in a place with significant ties to the Brontes, that's the parsonage which is in Bradford, a few miles away from where I was studying, I thought I'd begin with a reread of them, and soon I was reading more than just their own works. I was reading criticism and their biographical works, and it was clear that this wasn't distraction, it was kind of an indirect reflection. I recognized the frustration with their ostensive lack of achievement related to the isolation they all at one time suffered, and felt humbled by their stoic conviction and literary brilliance. At one stage, I even memorized Emily's The Old Stoic for comfort. I was all about the Brontes, and I liked letting people know that. So my housemate of the time was obviously particularly well informed. He was one of those people who sincerely believes that popular music peaked in the mid to late 20th century, and his awareness of my enthusiasm for a legendary author meant the inevitable appearance of Wuthering Heights one night. He said, "I'm sure you know this one." I remember him saying that before he pressed play. Of course, I recognized it from the first high key taps and trancey chimes, and I immediately winced. This had nothing of the feeling or sense of Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights, the actual text. This was a musicless environment of the deepest vengeance and spite. It was relentless abuse and corrupt conscience. This time, however, I was assailed by a reluctant affection invoked by those first notes. It wasn't just that I recognized them for how I remembered the song, but that I recognized them on something of a formal level. I'd never noticed that the chorus was detectable in those first notes. Not explicitly, not an exact structural replication, but a suggestion. It was as if the song itself was whispering, "Remember me? It's me, I'm Kathy, I've come home." Tonally, the song was enacting an important aspect of that text I was being so pedantic about. That suggestion was itself ghostly, both forecasting what was to come and echoing what it had been. And that motif, as motifs do, it repeated. It was ongoing, just like Cathy's unfortunate and unintended influence, posthumous and otherwise, on Heathcliff. So I listened on more intently than I ever had. And I asked that we listen to it again, and I bathed in the splendid mellifluousness of the piece, how it paired a haunting declaration with a warmly triumphant melody. And though leisurely, it also seemed just utterly tumultuous, going up and down, complementing the imagery and the semantic content of the lyrics, those overwhelming hills surrounding Bradford, as if moving between extremes of overwhelming devotion and hatred. The lyrics themselves, I noticed, more overtly signified that dichotomy of emotion and action, just through a very simple stylistic act of foregrounding. It's known as a stylistic parallelism. So two similar constructions: I hated you, I loved you too. It just highlights the simultaneous existence of hate and love, as if they're combining together to result in passionate cruelty. And then there's the use of a very naturally ambiguous term, possess. How could you leave me when I needed to possess you? It suggests more than so-called possessive love, that which covets, but a kind of control of Heathcliff's very substance, the phantasmic sharing perhaps of a single soul. So as the original text has Cathy say about Heathcliff, I am Heathcliff, he's always in my mind. If all else perished and he remained, I should still continue to be, and if all else remained and he were annihilated, the universe would turn to a mighty stranger. I should not seem a part of it. And these are sentiments that Kate alludes to with her rendering of it in a less formal register. It gets lonely on the other side from you, I pine a lot, I find the lot falls through without you. So I can't claim to have a comprehensive understanding of Emily's masterpiece, but what was clear, at least, was that Kate Bush and I shared a similar intrigue and respect for her work and the dynamic between the two characters. By the way, guess who shares Emily Bronte's birthday, and guess who went by the name of Cathy to her closest family members? So yes, I listened to Wuthering Heights that night with completely new affection and a more pleasant reminiscence, just remembering how my sister sycophantically listened and danced to the song. I still found it cheesy, but the uniqueness and the variety of its mood and its technique just completely overshadowed that quality. I remember saying to Charlie, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm actually enjoying the song. So I sat there for a moment just relishing the just tangible transformation of my response, and we watched the music video, and I thought, perhaps I'm just been biased by, an ironic affection. I mean, that music video is a bit silly after all. So I did a search for Kate Bush on YouTube, and thumbnails featuring her either dramatic or eccentric countenance lined the results column, and I looked for what was notably popular, hoping to find, something that would prove me right. So I saw The Man with the Child in His Eyes. It looked to be from around the same time, and I thought, what the hell? I'll bite. And then that bite became voracious feeding. And this time I was repeatedly listening and watching early Kate Bush with delicious, enthusiastic curiosity. This had little of the silliness I initially perceived in Wuthering Heights. I was immediately of the opinion that this was a physical performance of delicate intellect and unrestrained creativity. I'd had my head turned to the potential glories of dance back in sixth form, though since then I'd never been enamored by that art of my own accord. It turns out that this sudden rediscovery of Kate Bush was to be that first enamorment. She clearly knew the fine potential of body language, just how captivating and meaningful even the minor accentuation of, usually more sedate uses of the body can be. It was after seeing a production of Lindsay Kemp's Flowers in 1976 that she became confident that movement held the key to greater realization of her ideas. She had this to say after seeing it. I thought that if one person could actually produce the music themselves and give him or herself at the same time, then you'd get double energy coming from one person. It could only be stronger. And I thought, golly, that's what I want to do. And I can't help including a quote from John Bush, one of her brothers, about that moment. It seemed to me that Cathy had come back as Kate. She was given 18 months after initial interest from EMI in her, and I cannot overstate how well she used those 18 months. With them, she set about sharpening her intuition for movement through the attendance to the classes of a few performers and instructors. There was Adam Darius in the middle there. Adam Darius in the middle there. I want to do that again. Adam Darius in the middle there, who basically created a fusion of mime and dance. And then there was Lindsay Kemp himself, who she regarded as one of the most original artists she'd ever met. And then there's Arlene Phillips right there. She had lessons from these three legends, and all had good things to say about her just natural inquisitiveness and hard-working attitude. She said of Kemp's training that she was taught the expression of emotion rather than what she saw as the straightforward illusion of mime, saying that Lindsay taught me that you can express with your body, and when your body is awake, so is your soul. But he left for Australia after 6 months of Kate's attendance, and she quickly migrated to other classes. Anyway, yes, watching and listening to the man with the child in his eyes was like a genuine instance of enchantment. She uses what she learned and studied confidently, just having mime and dance interplay with those lyrics she wrote at 13 years old. It was one of her apparently 2 songs a day writing habit of her youth. So, you just got different imagery and new emotion all being evoked and suggested by the virtue of that ability. And I soon learned that Kate quite often subverts expectations. I mean, a lot of her songs employ repetition with the purpose of deepening tone and achieving greater textual variety. As she herself said, I like the hypnotic quality of nursery rhyme. Repetition. A lot of traditional music has that basis, tumbling, rolling, drowning throughout. It's very primeval. In The Big Sky and Babushka, for example, layers are both taken away and added that progressively intensify those senses of optimism, potential, and daring. They're never uniform. A kind of musical party happens in both songs. Different vocal textures come to kind of accompany each other, which is befitting of the thematic nature of The Big Sky. It's a shot from The Big Sky itself, behind the scenes. And that sky was a rather ambiguous figure, which the lyrics often reference as the only object worthy of the speaker's attention. It's that simple adjective, big, kind of lends it a perspective of innocence, a grandness. And it was soon representing all potential and hope to me, implying the process of a very grateful new journey, relinquishing previous circumstance and matters of old concern to engage with possibility instead. And, this seemed quite a heavy contrast to the subject matter of the 2 tracks that precede it. We've got Running Up That Hill, for example. But that whole album, The Hounds of Love, can be very much said to be about just a deep longing for more positive circumstance. But I wonder if Kate was intentionally relying on that figuration of the challenging nature of love, that metaphor of a fierce hound to describe just how painful love can be, as an intertextual force. It's kind of like when Orsino in Twelfth Night compares that desire for Olivia to the pursuit of fell and cruel hounds. She's never been shy to borrow from and expand on the featured ideas and motifs of Anglo-Irish and English literature, and as well as popular culture and literature as well. You've got The Infant Kiss, which came from Henry James's The Turn of the Screw. You've got Get Out of My House from the 4th album that was inspired by The Shining. And then you've got, The Red Shoes, for example, which was inspired by that classic fairy tale and a film of the same name back in the 40s. I mean, I could not get enough of the diversity of her catalogue, the curiosity and the hunger for knowledge that epitomized it, the thorough embracing of theatricality and multiple art mediums to inform her work. It was characterized by humility and exteriority. It's rare that she utilizes her own personality and experiences for material, and I love that in an artist, that they have not just the willingness, but the instinct to look outside the self for the expression of joy and awe, that they're able to make sure that the world's inherent strangeness of history and circumstance, its great intrigue, are honored through their entertaining and skillful artistic communication. I was soon reminded of my reading from my degree, in fact, T.S. Eliot's essay, Tradition and the Individual Talent. And that perspective is very well summarized by poetryfoundation.org, saying that a mature poet's mind works by being a passive receptacle of images, phrases, and feelings which are combined under immense concentration into a new art emotion. For Eliot, true art had nothing to do with the personal life of the artist, but is merely the result of a greater ability to synthesize and combine, an ability which comes from deep study and comprehensive knowledge. So in my opinion, Kate Bush matches Eliot's conception of a mature poet. I mean, in an interview with Colin Irwin for Melody Maker back in the 80s, she was quoted as saying, "I rarely write personal songs from experience. I often find myself inspired by unusual, distorted, weird subjects, as opposed to things that are straightforward." My fanaticism was pretty much complete at learning of her manner as a working artist. That methodology, for lack of a better term, was soon motivating me in my own artistic endeavors, and her influence extended beyond those initial months of enamorment into when I moved back to Sussex from Yorkshire. Reawakened to the splendor and joy of the performing arts, as well as the responsibility involved, I decided to reacquaint myself with theatre again. And despite over 10 years of absence from the stage, I got the part I hoped and worked for in a local play. We had a very, very tough final dress rehearsal, and blind to our own exhaustion and the temporary and contextual nature of the setbacks of the day, a few of us went to drown out our unwarranted sorrows and self-deprecation. And it was because of my choice of song at karaoke that night in Tintins that my fellow performers and people I now very much cherish call me Babushka. I couldn't be happier about that, to be honest. That I'm associated with that legend, with the person who, as Steve Coogan very simply expressed it, the person who could take you somewhere else. One of those friends is here tonight, actually. We bonded over our shared enthusiasm for Kate Bush, and in fact, I don't know, next slide. That's a Kate Bush-themed postcard I got for her, and we recently went to Wow and Flutter, where she found a very rare copy of the Red Shoes, much to my annoyance and envy. She bought it. Yeah. I mean, Kate once said about creating music that the worst thing is frustration at your own ability, not being able to do what you want to do. And I'd have replied, I fear what you could do if you had any more ability. It's another example of humility. It just results in continual improvement, experimentation, and development. And it's a reason such groundbreaking material emerged from her work. It's often the restraints that are placed upon artists that force them to think more creatively in order to overcome them. She does everything in her power to warrant that continued enigma and popularity. Though not to pursue it, she is an artist, not just a musician. Her insistent and fearless ingenuity is enough to prove that. She revels in the subversion of expectation, in novel modes of expression, in unusual but inherently political and widely relevant narratives, and in the practice of a range of forms, whilst also having the confidence to successfully transcend the rules attached to these. And that all leads to the creation of pieces that communicate and even heal. I mean, she claimed that she wanted to be a psychiatrist before her musical ambition took over. She said, I had this idea of helping people, I suppose. I found the idea of people's inner psychology fascinating. Music is very much a therapeutic thing. And I couldn't agree more, especially when it comes to her work and the effect it's had on me. To paraphrase her own lyrics, I never really understood her because I never really tried. And I'm thankful for her work. My rediscovery of it invoked a rediscovery of a part of me. It gently reminded me that there are indeed wrong times to engage with matter of any nature, but these shouldn't define your experience and perspective forever. It's like the message of her third album's title, which biographer Tom Doyle characterized as Zen-like and paraphrased as feelings and situations, whether good or bad, are impermanent. And we're talking about never forever here. It reinforced that the right to change your mind, as well as the opportunities, the necessity to try again, should be cherished, because to engage with what is unfamiliar, to excite and extend yourself, to ensure freshness of experience and growth is to liberate yourself. By happy coincidence, Hastings is going to be host to Sussex' first Most Wuthering Heights Day ever on August the 31st, in which as many people dressed in red dresses as possible gather on a hill to perform it. To perform Wuthering Heights, sorry. If I'm lucky enough to have that day off, you can guarantee that I'll be there. So there's that, and that is never forever. Thank you.
Excellent.